There is a particular kind of silence that lives inside someone who loved a narcissist with their whole heart. It is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of a person who gave everything they had, every ounce of patience, every drop of loyalty, every soft word at 3 in the morning, every sacrifice no one ever saw, and then watched the person they loved most reach into their chest and break something that was never meant to be broken. If you have ever sat alone in a quiet room, staring at nothing, feeling like a stranger inside your own body, wondering how someone you protected so fiercely could hurt you so casually, this video is going to speak to a part of you that has been waiting a very long time to be understood. Because what happens to a person after a narcissist crushes the one who gave them everything is not random. It is not weakness. It is not overreacting. It is a quiet psychological earthquake, and almost no one talks about what really unfolds inside the soul of the person left behind. Before we go deeper, if you are someone who has lived through emotional manipulation, silent abuse, or the slow erosion of your identity inside a relationship that drained you, take a moment and subscribe to this channel. This space is built for people who want to understand narcissistic behavior, emotional manipulation, healing, self-worth, and psychological freedom on a level that goes far beyond the surface. You deserve to finally make sense of what happened to you. Subscribing is the smallest act of self-respect you can give yourself today, and it tells the part of you that has been silenced for years that someone is finally listening. The first thing that happens when a narcissist hurts the person who gave them everything is something almost impossible to describe to anyone who has not lived it. It is a kind of emotional collapse that does not show on the outside. From the world, you still look the same. You still smile at coworkers, you still answer the phone, you still cook, work, drive, function. But inside, something has gone strangely quiet. There is a heaviness behind your eyes that feels older than you are. You begin to feel like a house with all the lights still on, but no one living inside. This is what happens when the nervous system has been pushed past the point of normal grief. You are not just sad. You are not just heartbroken. You are emotionally exhausted in a way sleep cannot fix, because the exhaustion is not from the body. It is from years of holding your breath around someone whose moods you had to predict to survive. You spent so long managing their emotions that you forgot you were allowed to have your own. And now, in the aftermath, your soul is finally exhaling for the first time, and that exhale feels like falling apart. The second thing that happens is the slow, devastating realization that what you experienced was not love in the way you understood it. This is one of the most painful awakenings a human being can go through, because it is not just the loss of a person. It is the loss of a story you believed about your own life. You begin to look back at moments you once treasured, and you start to see them differently. The kindness was conditional. The affection was timed. The closeness only existed when you were useful. The connection you fought so hard to protect was held together almost entirely by your own efforts. And when that truth finally hits, it does not arrive like a thunderclap. It arrives like a slow tide, washing over memory after memory, until you are standing in the wreckage of years you cannot get back. You are not crazy for grieving someone who is still alive. You are grieving the version of them you believed in. You are grieving the future you built in your imagination. You are grieving the person you used to be before you met them, the version of yourself who still trusted easily, who still believed the world was fundamentally safe. The third thing that happens is the trauma bond begins to unravel, and this is where things get psychologically strange. For so long, your nervous system was conditioned to crave their approval, their attention, their fleeting warmth. The brain learns to chase intermittent affection the same way it learns to chase any unpredictable reward, and that chase becomes wired into your body. So when the relationship ends, or when something inside you finally breaks and shifts, you do not feel free at first. You feel withdrawal. You feel a pull back toward the very person who hurt you, and you cannot understand why. You may even feel ashamed of missing them. But please hear this clearly. Missing someone who hurt you is not a sign that the relationship was real. It is a sign that your body was trained to associate them with survival. That is not love. That is biology responding to prolonged emotional danger. And the moment you understand this, the spell begins to weaken, slowly, painfully, but permanently. The fourth thing that happens is something almost no one warns you about. Your sense of identity begins to feel foreign, like clothes that no longer fit. You spent so long shrinking yourself, softening your opinions, hiding your needs, and shaping yourself around their moods, that when the relationship finally fractures, you do not know who you are anymore. You sit with yourself and realize you do not know what you actually like. You do not know what music moves you anymore. You do not know what you would do on a free Saturday if no one was watching. You do not know what your laugh sounds like when it is not performed. This is identity loss, and it is one of the deepest wounds narcissistic relationships leave behind. Because the price of staying in their orbit was the slow erasure of your own. You were not just loving them, you were translating yourself into a language they would tolerate. And now that the translation has stopped, you have to learn how to speak as yourself again. And that takes time, and that is okay. If this is reaching something deep inside you, if any part of this feels like it was written from inside your own mind, take a breath and stay with me. And if you have not yet, subscribe to this channel. Not for me. For the part of you that has spent years being told you were too sensitive, too dramatic, too much, or not enough. This channel exists so that part of you can finally rest, finally learn, finally heal. Every video is a quiet companion for the long road back to yourself. You do not have to walk it alone. The fifth thing that happens is something the narcissist never expects, and it is one of the most quietly powerful shifts a human being can experience. You stop reacting. The emotional outbursts you used to have, the desperate attempts to be understood, the late-night messages explaining your pain in different words, hoping this time it would land, all of it slows and then it stops. Not because you no longer feel, you feel everything, but something in you has finally accepted that they were never going to understand, because understanding you would require them to admit something they cannot afford to admit. And in that acceptance, a strange calm settles over you. This is the moment the narcissist begins to feel a loss of control. Because for years, your reactions were the fuel. Your tears were proof of their power. Your anger was evidence that you still cared enough to fight. The moment you go quiet, truly quiet, not as a strategy, but as a result of inner shift, they sense it immediately, even from a distance. And this is when many of them return, with apologies that sound rehearsed, with sudden warmth, with promises that feel hauntingly familiar, because they are not returning for you. They are returning for the version of you who used to come running. And the most powerful thing you can do in that moment is recognize that the person they want back no longer lives inside you. The sixth thing that happens is the deepest and the most transformative. You begin to feel an emotional emptiness that frightens you at first because you mistake it for depression or hopelessness. But this emptiness is not death. It is space. It is the silence of a soul that finally has room to breathe. For so long, every corner of your inner world was occupied by them, by their voice, by their needs, by your fear of disappointing them, by the constant low hum of anxiety that lived in your chest. And now suddenly, those corners are empty. And in that emptiness, something new begins to grow, slowly, almost shyly, like a flower pushing through cracked concrete. You start to remember small things about yourself. A song you used to love, a dream you used to have, a version of yourself who existed before you learned to apologize for taking up space. This is the beginning of self-worth recovery, and it does not arrive all at once. It arrives in small, sacred moments. The first time you eat a meal in peace without checking your phone. The first time you say no without explaining yourself. The first time you catch your reflection and feel something other than disappointment. These are not small. These are revolutionary. And here is something almost no one tells you. The narcissist does feel something when they lose a person who truly loved them. It is not the deep, soul-shaking grief that you feel. It is something colder, more disorienting, more confused. They feel the loss of supply. They feel the disturbance in the pattern. They feel an emptiness they cannot name. And because they cannot name it, they cannot heal it. Some of them will reach out years later, often when their next relationship begins to fall apart, often when life has stripped away the masks they used to wear. They will say things that sound like regret. They will hint at change, and you will have to decide in that moment whether the peace you have built is worth more than the closure you once begged for. Most of the time, the truth is this: you do not need their apology to be free. You only thought you did. Real freedom is the moment you realize their words can no longer reach the place inside you that used to bleed. You may notice something else as healing deepens. You start to look at yourself with a softness you used to reserve only for them. You begin to understand that the love you poured into someone who could not receive it was not wasted. It was proof. Proof that you are capable of a depth of love most people never even touch. Proof that the problem was never that you loved too much. The problem was that you loved someone who treated your love like an inconvenience. And now, that same love, that vast, generous, uncommon love, is finally turning toward the only person who has been with you through every silent night. You. The person who survived. The person who stayed alive even when staying felt impossible. The person who is, right now, watching this and quietly nodding because something inside is finally being named. If this video is touching something real in you, this is the moment to make a decision that your future self will thank you for. Subscribe to this channel and stay close to this kind of truth. Not because anything outside of you is going to save you, but because surrounding yourself with voices that reflect your awakening is one of the most powerful things you can do. Healing is not a single event. It is 1,000 small acts of choosing yourself, again and again, in rooms no one else will ever see. Here is the truth that very few people will ever tell you. The narcissist did not break you. They revealed you. They revealed your capacity to endure. They revealed your loyalty, your patience, your depth, your refusal to give up on someone you believed in. Those qualities were never the problem. The problem was the soil you planted them in. And now, finally, you are learning to plant yourself somewhere your roots can actually grow. You are learning that love should not feel like surveillance. Connection should not feel like walking on glass. Affection should not feel like a reward you have to earn through perfect behavior. You are learning, slowly, that the relationships meant for you will not require the destruction of who you are. There will still be hard nights. There will still be moments when an old memory surfaces and your chest tightens for reasons you cannot fully explain. There will still be days when you wonder if you imagined the whole thing, if it was really as bad as you remember. This is normal. This is the mind trying to make sense of what happened in the only way it knows how. But every time you choose not to go back, every time you choose your peace over their chaos, every time you let yourself feel something without numbing it, you are healing. You are rebuilding the home inside yourself that was burned down by someone who never deserved the keys. And one day, and this day is closer than you think, you will catch yourself in an ordinary moment, maybe pouring a cup of something warm, maybe walking somewhere familiar, maybe just sitting by a window, and you will realize that you have not thought about them in days. The grip is gone. The ghost is gone. The version of you that was on her knees, that was on his knees, begging to be loved properly by someone incapable of it, is gone too. In her place, in his place, stands someone quieter, stronger, slower to trust, but deeper in love with life. Someone who knows exactly what they will never tolerate again. Someone who has learned that being chosen is not the same as being cherished, and being needed is not the same as being loved. That person is who you are becoming right now in this very moment, even as you watch this. The pain you are carrying is not your destination. It is your initiation. And the same heart that was broken open by someone who could not love you is the same heart that will one day know a love so steady, so safe, so honest, that you will look back at this chapter of your life and finally understand. You were never too much. You were never the problem. You were a soul who loved in a place that could not hold you. And now you are coming home to yourself. And no one, not them, not anyone, can ever take that home from you again.